Hi friends, it's Becky, and I'm going to do a little bit of a callback to earlier this month when we were playing around with and making things with the Softflex um, design kit from last month, and it's the Special Tea kit. And it was a really fun kit to make things with. I made some 2-hole bead bracelets with these Tilas and the piggy beads that came in here. I've done some earrings with them. I think I did a necklace. I can't remember. But I know that one of the things that I wanted to do was to use this very special charm, this pendant that came in that kit. And I was reminded on Wednesday when Sarah Ayler and Sarah James were doing some designing with this again during their live on Wednesday. They were talking about how it's nice to go back and revisit some of the things, maybe a little bit, make some things that you had planned, but that you had moved on from then. And I realized when I mentioned in the live chat, I was like, I've been saving this pendant for something special. And then I remembered what I had talked about during my chat session last week, to use the good beads, to use those things that you've been saving for something special. And so I'm going to go ahead and use this, and I'm going to make something special with it instead of saving it or being like, oh, well, I just don't know if what I'm going to make is going to be special enough, and all of that. So that's what I'm going to do today. We're going to make something with this pendant because it's a great pendant, and I don't want to just save it and never use it, because I think it's definitely worth wearing and revisiting and all of that. So I'm going to be using that. I'm also going to be using some of the beads from that Special Tea kit. I'm going to be using some of the bone color Softflex wire. This is beading wire that came with that kit. And I'm also going to be making some earrings today with y'all because I'm doing my earrings everyday challenge, and these were another part of that kit that I wanted to make something with and never got around to showing y'all. And I have already glued these pieces of wire onto the back of this, so they're already set and ready to go. But I'll show you how I formed that with some craft wire. If you wanted to have a go at it yourself, I just wanted to have a connector with it, so I had loops on both ends with it. But yeah, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use some of these pearls that came in the Jesse James Beads kit for that. We had these really fun textured beads. They're very lightweight but very big, and so I think they'll look great with some earrings. And I'm definitely going to go with add a little more texture with these bead caps on these to give it more of a mixed metals kind of vibe. So those are all going to be in the earrings that we're going to do in a little bit later. I'm going to use some 20 gauge pewter colored craft wire for that part as well. Now for stringing, one of the other things that I wanted to do with this is, because we had so many beads with these large holes, like these ceramic beads and these metal beads with the wire mesh and the large holes, I also wanted to use some SilverSilk. And so I popped over to my SilverSilk stash, and since I'm using a special pendant for a special thing and I'm using the good beads for this, I wanted to use some special SilverSilk that maybe it's not being made anymore, instead of hoarding it, which, like, I actually do hoard quite a bit of the SilverSilk, and I honestly could probably use it in every project for the next year and still have some left at this point. But this is some SilverSilk that it's not currently available on the website. Not currently. I say currently because it's entirely possible that Neely may decide to do another run of this. It is this brass ball chain inside of bone color, the same color as this wire. And so it's got this nice matte ivory color over the antique brass chain, and it gives you just this really great effect. I think this was one of the special chains that was made for the sea and sand kits that he put together last year, and I just was keeping it, just putting it aside, being like, "Ah, I don't want to use that because it's special. It's not something that he keeps regularly stocked on his website." And I will put a link to the Silver Silk and More shop in the description below, where you can get more capture chain. And this particular one isn't available, but there are others that are very nice and look great and are also maybe some one-offs. Check the pop-up shop, because that's where you're going to find those limited run capture chains and what is it called? Pipe chains and all of that sort of thing, and the leather chains. Because he'll do the pop-up shop with those limited run colors, the ones that are special, and that's where you'll be able to find some of those. But let me keep going, because I'm gonna again be using some SilverSilk findings. These are ones in the silver. I've got a clasp. These came in the kit. So I've got some jump rings and I've got my clasp. So we'll be able to make a necklace that goes along with it. And then I'm going to pull some beads out for the rest of this. My tools, I'm going to be closing my SilverSilk findings with my flat pliers. I'm going to be opening and closing jump rings, probably with a combination of both of these, with my chain nose pliers. I have some round nose pliers if I need to do any forming of any loops, and I may be doing some forming of some loops because I think I need to still make a little bail for this for when I string it along here. So when I do that, I will again be using this. And I think that's all the stuff. Oh, flush cutters for cutting my wire. All right. Oh, 2x2 crimp tubes and magical crimper for crimping my wire, my beading wire. All right. So my idea for the necklace is this, and that is that I have my pendant, right? And then I grab some of these beads. That's a large hole bead, so I'm going to be using that with this. But let me just lay these out, see how I like it, where it's at. And I think I want to use some of these pearls in here too, but also some of these cream colored button beads. I think they're gorgeous, and I think they definitely deserve to get used. So let me get a couple more of these large hole beads out. And I think that's what I'm going to be using. Let's just lay this out. So once I've got a little bail made, and maybe my bail will include one of these. Yeah, I think that'll look nice. Okay. So, you know what though? Or maybe this. Yeah, I think I like that idea better. Okay, so I'm going to use this ceramic bead as well on the bail. And yeah, okay. That will work. So we'll make a little bail. And then coming up the sides, on either side of that, we'll have these beads all together strung on the beading wire. Like this. And then I'm going to have that beading wire attached to this capture chain, so that you have this strand of capture chain going across the top of it. So it'll be hooked up over here and hooked up over here. And then just on the other side of where the beading wire is attached to it, I'm going to string these fat whole beads just along the sides of it. And then this will go back and we'll do a little clasp. And I think I like that idea for it. All right, so what I'm going to do before I do anything else is cut my capture chain. I'm going to cut it a little bit longer than I want it to be, so that I have room to trim it in case my measurements are off on either side. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it right there. And I'm going to cut between the little balls in the ball chain. You can cut the balls too, but then you just have to clean up and cut off one of those on the other end. And now I've got some extra that I can use for other things later. All right, so let's string my, first part, make my bail for this. So get out my pewter wire. And it's not actually pewter wire, it's copper wire, but it's silver plated in a pewter color. And this is a great wire to use with antique silver findings or pewter findings or even stainless steel findings, because it's not as bright as silver, but it still gives you that gray color. So I'm just straightening this out a little bit to warm it up with my fingers. I'm going to pop this ceramic bead right on there. I kind of want to do a bead cap, maybe one of these flat bead caps. Let me see what it looks like with the this bead cap on it. Okay, yeah, I can handle that. All right, so I'll put the other bead cap on after I do the first wrap. So I'm going to do a wrapped loop about a couple of inches down from the top. I'm going to bend it over, and I bend it over before I make the loop so that the loop will be centered when I grasp my wire. And I just saw a thing, somebody doing a tip, and I didn't even think of using this as one of my tips, is that when I grab my wire, I don't squeeze down really hard with it. I'm just holding it. And that way I can just move the wire around it while I'm holding it. You don't have to like death grip your wire. And that way you don't leave a lot of marks on it when you're working with it either. So now I've got my loop. Then I'm just going to use my fingers and push this wire around that central core. And I've got 3 loops. That is good enough for me. Then I'll use my flush cutters to cut off my excess wire. And my chain nose pliers to tuck that end in just a little bit because it pokey outs a little bit and I don't like that. Okay. All right, so now from the bottom of the bead, I'm going to measure about 3 fingers from the bottom, and that's where I'm going to cut this off. This is why I like to make my wrap loops by stringing the bead onto the spool first, so that I can measure the right amount for making my wrapped loop on the other side without having to cut off too much of it. Now, in order for this to both be to hang correctly on here and for it to have that, now I could have just used a jump ring and jump ring to this onto there because it would be facing the correct way, but I want my loop to go in the same direction that this is, so that when I'm looking at it, I see two circles and not a circle and a line. So I'm going to turn this so that I see a line, so that when I bend this over while I'm looking right at it, it's going to be starting in the same direction. And you can always readjust your loops after you've made them. You can twist them and turn them if you need to, but I like to start as I mean to go on. So it's just the less changes that you do to the wire, the better it's going to stay there. So I bent that over. I made sure I did it over the top of those pliers so that it would leave some space here for wrapping with my wire afterwards. All right, and now I'm going to pull that right over the top and then rotate my pliers so that I can continue all the way around like that. And I can hold on to my loop and then just use my fingers to push this around. And once it's wrapped down to the rest of this, I can use my flush cutters again and cut off my excess wire. And this is the part that I was telling you about. You can adjust the direction of your loops. What you want, if you want the loops facing the same way, is you want your pliers to be parallel like that. If I wanted my loops to be facing different directions, I would rotate my second one until it was like a cross shape. I did that without actually gripping it so that I could just demonstrate that. So we've got that. You know what I did? Dang it! All right. I spent all that time trying to describe what I was doing that I forgot that with wrapped loops, you want to actually attach it to your thing before you wrap it. So I am going to get to that point and start over. Son of a jeez. I'll meet you right back here at the point where I'm going to attach this before wrapping it. So we're just going to pretend that all that other nonsense never happened. The best part about making mistakes is that you can always go back and do better the second time. That is the wonderful part. You can learn from them. So here I am. I have my loop made and I have not wrapped it yet. This is the part, the important part that I skipped over. I'm going to just swing this open a little bit, kind of like you do with a jump ring, to make it easier to get my pendant onto it. I'm just going to slide this guy right on there. And now that my pendant is on there, I'm going to want to wrap my loop. And I'm going to close that up again with my pliers. Actually, let's turn that around so that the gravity will hold this down. And I'm holding on to this with my pliers. And I'm just going to push my wire around this. I believe this is where some curved pliers would come in handy. So busy talking about like the direction of the loops and how to adjust it that I totally forgot an entire step. Luckily, I have some fantastic friends here on YouTube who were probably yelling at me through the YouTube channel about forgetting to do my thing. So thank y'all for keeping me on my toes. Somehow I heard it. I promise. All right, so now I've got this attached there. Let's pull off some wire from here. And I'm not going to need a ton of wire. Probably about 7 to 8 inches will probably do. I'm going to go ahead and just pull off 15 for the heck of it. If I have extra wire, that's fine. I use the extra Softflex wire for all sorts of things like earrings, adding to my crimps to beef them up. I've got a little baggie full of offcuts from the Softflex wire because they are very useful to have and to use for other things. All right, I'm just gonna grab a little bead stopper to pop onto one end of this while I'm stringing it. And I'm just gonna start stringing right here with all of these beads that I've laid out for this. And I love these check glass beads. This design with the texture, like it's a really like filigree kind of texture, Baroque. But it makes me think of brains. So that's just what they are in my head. They're brain beads. I'm not the only one, but I know it's just one of those really weird things that's where my brain goes. To brains. I was gonna have this as the bead for the thing, but it's just so big, and I kind of didn't want to unbalance everything with it. Plus, I love ceramic beads, and having a ceramic bead on this part will just make it a little bit more cohesive when I add these ceramic beads on the other part. The hole on this is not big enough for the capture chain. So it's going to need to be strung on a beading wire. Where are you going, buddy? There you go. Look what I forgot again. There we go. This guy. Right. Because there were so many things that I loved about this kit when I opened it, and then I just was like, oh, I'm gonna save that for this, and then did not get around to it, and I hate that. Okay, so yeah, I'm definitely gonna have some leftover wire. Maybe I can make a bracelet with it later, or maybe with y'all. Ooh, yes, let's make a bracelet with that. You know what? Let's just do the whole thing. We'll do a necklace, we'll do some earrings, and we'll do a bracelet. All right, we're gonna have a nice long video for y'all today. Nice and long. All right, so. Need to find the middle of this. It's about the middle right there. Okay. Now, how am I going to attach this? I think I'm gonna need to do like a tight crimp around it, or I could put this wire through the knitted wire to hook it onto there. I think it might go through. I think we might go through the wire. Okay, let me put this on the other side and work with the short side first. Oh, there we go. Grab a couple crimps. How do I get the middle? I think I'm gonna just put something in here so that I know where the middle of this is. Something removable that I can put this through, I know, one of these little offcuts from my I'm just going to stick this through the middle. Wait, I don't want something big. I want something small because this is going to be the plain bit, and I don't want to deform this wire because it's going to just be a plain piece of capture chain. Here we go. Yes, this is a smaller wire, and I'm going to bend it very carefully around here. So I'm just bending this wire and not the fine gauge wire that is around that. And then I can remove this. I just wanted to denote where the actual middle of this chain is. That's all I'm doing. Denoting where the middle of it is, so that when I, count the balls, you can count the balls through here. Let's go up. About there. Okay. So if we go through the chain here, after I get a crimp tube on this wire, then I put this wire through the knits on this capture chain. So it has these holes in it. Scooch in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. This is the same color as the chain, or as the wire that it's going on, so it might be a little hard for you to see. There we go. Do you see how I've got it going through there? Don't slide out, mister. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap around the other side of this and through this crimp. And usually when I do this, I like to leave my crimp a little bit of wiggle room, but I do not want wiggle room on this. So I'm pushing my crimp tube right up against this. As long as there's room between it and the other for my crimping pliers, I should be good. Right? So now I'm going to do a little crimp. I'm going to use my magical crimper. Pushed right up against there. Give it a crimp, and then rotate it, and crimp again, rotate it, and crimp again. And every time you come at it from a different angle and then squeeze it, it smushes down the edges, so you get this really nice, flat, smooth crimp bead. I love those. And I don't think this will go through here twice. No, it will not. So I'm going to cut that right next to my crimp. Right, and this is why I've got a bead stopper on that end, so that I can move that around enough. All right, now. So that's not going to slide along the capture chain at all, and I'm just going to count from the middle out to where that is. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so it's between the 12th and 13th ball from the center. So now I can count from the center out here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this 12th one right there, this is where I'm going to stick the other end of my beading wire. So I've got a crimp tube here. I'm going to put on my beading wire. I'm holding on to this while I'm doing that. All right. Let me just make sure that we are rotated the correct way. All right, I'll get that right on there. All right. Perfect. That's what I wanted right there. And I don't need this anymore. So I'm just going to cut that away carefully like that. Perfect. I like it. I like it. I like it. All right, I'm gonna scooch this down a little bit so that I can get the other end of my beading wire into this. You know what? I'll do a bracelet another day. This is complicated enough, I think, with all of this. All right. Now let's get this scooched all the way over there. All right. Perfect. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and crimp this on that end. Seems like that one was not as centered as it needed to be, so. All right, there we go. All right, save that for later. Now, all right, I'm happy that my little idea so far turned out. Now we'll have a little drape from that when we're wearing it, and let me start stacking my other beads on the sides of my SilverSilk. And I'm not going to need to like crimp these or anything. Gravity will do all the work for me to keep them right here next to these other beads while it's being worn. So we've got those on that side, this on this side. All right, and now let's see if this is even Stevens. Oh man, finding that center of the SilverSilk really paid off, because now I'm not going to need to do much cutting off of these ends, probably right there, just to even Stevens these guys. And I did, you know, cut it a little bit longer just because, but this is still going to be a really great length of a necklace to wear, I think. Actually, I'm just gonna cut it a little bit shorter. Right there, that's gonna do. Yeah, I just tried it on. I was like, no, that's gonna have that pendant falling into an area where it's just gonna get lost and nobody's gonna see it. You guys know what I mean, right? That's why I'm shortening it. And there's these little bits of wire that will hang on very often when you cut it off. It's just the loops from the knit parts being cut off, and you can pull them off with some pliers like I am here, or with your fingers. Sometimes they'll shake them loose. And that's just cleaning it up before you put it in the findings. All right, so the findings are actually, they're made by SilverSilk specifically to go with the chain because it's such a unique product. There's not a lot of things out there that are made specifically for it. And so they have a little lip on the inside, and that will catch onto the ball chain when you close it and hold it. It holds it in there for these cord ends. And then you can attach your other findings and things to that loop on the other end. And it's really, really fantastic because, like, you don't even need glue for these. You can just or you can just clamp it right on there. And often it won't be quite wide enough to be able to shove that all the way in the back. So I'll stick my pliers in here and then just use my hands to widen my pliers just a little bit, and that just widens the mouth of the crimp so you can get that all the way back in there. You want to go, 2 balls deep. And then take your wide pliers and close it like an alligator mouth all the way around that. And just to make sure that it closed good, that it closed well, I like to hold on to this and then give it a little tug. Sometimes it'll slip out, and that means that I've got to reseat it and try again. But this is in there very well. So now I can move on to the next one and do the same thing. Make sure it's nice and wide. And this is facing direction, so the SS stamping will face the right way on that. And I can shove this in as much as possible and use my pliers to squeeze it shut. So when you do that, that little lip on the inside of it, it'll catch the ball chain and hold it securely. And again, I like to give it a little tug just to make sure that it's good. Right. All right, now jump rings. All right, I've got my little jump ring right here. I located the little division in the jump ring. It's right there at that end. So what I'm going to do is hold one end straight like that, and then twist it apart in order to open it. And I can slide this guy on here and this guy on here. And then it's just the opposite way to close it. You hold one end straight and then rotate it with the other pliers to close it up. And it helps if you rotate it correctly and don't overshoot yourself like I did just now, so that it's good and closed. Sometimes I'll even give it a little bit of a tamp on both sides just to emphasize this is where you live now. This is who you are. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to attach the jump ring directly to this loop, and then the lobster clasp can hook onto this jump ring. Where's my opening on it? This one is is that it over there? Let's find out. It is. I found it. There we go. All right. There we go. Now we've got a necklace, and I'll do a try on tomorrow when I do my what I made this week chat, so you can see how it hangs. But because it's choker length, it's going to be a little bit wider like that, and it will look amazing, I am sure. I love it. So there I've used two special things that I've been saving and been afraid to use because they were one of a kind sort of things, and one was this pendant and the other one was this silver silk, and I used both of them today. Now let's use another special thing that again is sort of one of a kind, and it's these rose components. I'm going to make one earring with y'all, and then I will do the other one on my own. And so for this, let me show you first of all how I made this little curved component on the back. I used my 6-step bail making pliers for that. The second to largest loop is the best size for the back of this rose. The largest loop was about too big. And then I used the second smallest for the loops on either side. And I did with this, I used 18 gauge wire for this. So let me grab just some of that and show you how I did that. I made 2 of each of these. Where's my 18 gauge? 18 gauge, 18 gauge. Okay, here we go, 18 gauge wire. All right. So if it's flush cut like that, I went ahead and did my first loop by pinching it between here and then bending this around until it touched the wire on the other side, just like that. Well, there you go, just like that. And then to get the other loop with this loop facing away from this second largest bit, I looped this around, and it doesn't even need to come all the way around because I cut it partway through this way. So I cut it about there, and then I did the same thing a second time and overlaid them. So this one would have been laid like there. And then the second one laid like this. And I glued them on with some the Loctite, and it glued pretty quickly. And then because after gluing there was a bit of a big step down on the back from where the level of the wire was and the back of this, I filled that in with some diamond glaze and left that to cure overnight, just to fill in that space a little bit so that it wasn't bumpy. I just didn't want it to be bumpy. It doesn't matter if it's bumpy or not, but I just didn't want it to be. It's weird, I know. That's okay. All right. Now for these earrings, let's go ahead and make ourselves a little bit of a head pin using this. .20 gauge wire, and I'm just going to make a really small head pin by taking the wire right here at the tip of my pliers and making myself a bit of a loop that crosses over that part right there. And then I'm going to hold on to this and bend my wire straight up. Now this is not a it's not like a knotted head pin. It's just a little bit of a loop down there at the bottom that this pearl is going to sit on when I get it in there. It looks a little bit like a golf club. You can use a regular head pin if you want for this. It doesn't have to be this kind, or you can do like a little spiral at the bottom or something like that. This is kind of like a spiral head pin, but with extra steps. And this actually is not going to fit on this pearl. So 20 gauge is not going to work. Let's use a 22 gauge. I got 22 gauge. All right, let's do the same thing. Just wrapping around this. I just want to go past that a little bit. And then hold on to this with my pliers and bend my wire up from that. This little end here, it's a little sticky outy end. I'm just gonna tuck that in a little bit so that it's not as sticky outy. Give that a squish. All right, now with my 22 gauge wire instead of 20 gauge, I should have checked that the pearl would fit on that before I started. That's okay. So now that I've got that on there, I can get my textured bead. I'm going to drop my bead cap on first. Get this textured bead on there. Drop the other bead cap on top of it, like that. And now I can make a little loop up here at the top, and let's go ahead and do a wrapped loop. And so I'm going to make my loop first, like that. And then before I wrap it, because I learned from my mistakes sometimes, I'm going to put my rose on there. And then now we do the wraps all the way down to where the bead is. Let's see if we can get that towards the back. There we go. All right, so I'm going to cut off my excess wire. That's not as much excess as I wanted to cut off. There's the rest of it. Like that. And then we can put on our ear wire. And that's a pair of earrings. Ta-da! All right, so that is what I've wanted to make and then never got around to, using the Special Tea Design Kit and using some special things that I was like, I want to save it for something special, like the SilverSilk and this charm. I hope y'all enjoyed this. I hope you are enjoying making things with the good beads this week, and I will talk to you tomorrow during my catch up and show you how this looks. Have a great day. Bye.